Hello students, your weekly announcement. And I'm afraid this one is kind of long, necessarily. Now, let's start off with some good news. If you submitted the annotated bibliography and you had difficulties with it, I don't know if I should, but I'll give you one more chance to revise and resubmit. But I think I have to draw the line at Friday at the very latest, because the literature review is even more time consuming for me to grade. That being said, then let me elaborate on a key distinction. The literature reviews are pretty standard for scientific papers, but they're not always found in academic papers in the humanities, so you may never have encountered one before. Now, if you're wondering how a literature review differs from an annotated bibliography, I have added a link to the most recent announcement, which should give you a pretty clear idea. Now, common pitfalls that I observed with the literature review. The most common error under quantity of sources is people citing popular magazines. Folks, this is scholarship. This is not just, dishing on a internet forum. So you need to cite scholarly sources. Under APA citation, that counts for 40 points on the literature review assignment. And please remember, whether something is italicized or not, or set in parentheses or out of the prescribed order, matters. There's APA citation format, it's not something that you can improvise around. You have to follow that format precisely. Now, also, let me add that one thing that I find very helpful is a source called worldcat.org, and they have a citation tool there. Now, it's not 100% reliable, but it's pretty good. I wouldn't say just rely on it, but look, if you're not sure how to cite a source, try looking it up on WorldCat. Let's see, analysis and evaluation counts for 75 points, and that calls for you to evaluate each source. Now, obviously the tools, you should remember the tools for evaluating sources, which have been a large and a very significant part of this class so far. So, since this isn't an annotated bibliography, I'm not expecting you to address all of the CRAAP criteria, but you probably want to work in direct reference to at least one or two of them. Synthesis. This is one aspect that is very different from the annotated bibliography. That counts for 75 points, and it asks for you to compare sources. Is one source more credible than another, for example? Is there a gap in one source which another source might address? Do two sources contradict each other? And is there a way to reconcile that contradiction? Is there a way to bring together information from two or more sources to create a larger and more detailed picture? What I'm looking for is, to toll this requirement, is comparative language. If you don't compare one thing to another, I'm sorry, you're not synthesizing. It's important for you to read the assignment and the rubric very closely. The 5 criteria in the rubric are what Brahman prescribes me to grade by. And via the rubric, it gives you notice as to their relative importance. Finally, moreover, the assignment gives you a pretty complete outline of how Brahman wants you to do the literature review. Quote, follow this outline for your review. Introduction. Introduction has 4 parts. Define or identify the general topic. Point out overall trends in what has been published. Establish your point of view for reviewing the literature, including your research question, and indicate how you're organizing the review. If there's like 3 or 4 different subtopics, then you want to tell me what those 3 or 4 subtopics are and the order in which you're going to address them. The body of the paper, again, 4 requirements. You should group research studies and other relevant literature according to a common theme. For example, you may find prevailing theories and practices involved with your research, and you can use these as thematic sections for the body of your literature review. Summarize each item of the literature appropriately according to its significance, but folks, don't just summarize sources. All too often students have submitted things that are just summary after summary, and that's not synthesis. Compare and evaluate each item of literature. Is one source better than another? Is there a conflict, as I already said? And provide topic sentences at the beginning of paragraphs and summary sentences at the end of sections to help the reader understand what the main issues are. Conclusion. In the conclusion, you should summarize the literature, maintaining the focus presented in the introduction, and then evaluate the current state of art, pointing out gaps in the literature, inconsistencies, and issues that are important for future study. Conclude by giving some insight into the relationship between your topic and a larger area of study or area of professional practice. I don't know why, but a lot of people skip that part, and that's important. The following elements are required for your literature review. The literature review must be 5 to 7 pages long. It's the last assignment, so folks, I'm afraid it's the most demanding. Double-spaced, and it should be in 12-point Times New Roman font. Include a references list in APA formatting at the end of the literature review. The references list should be on a separate page following the literature review, and refer to the style guide in the LBSU 302 library guide for how to incorporate in-text or parenthetical citations throughout the body of your literature review, and for formatting the citations in your references or works cited list properly. Now, when you refer to work in text or parenthetically, there's a slightly different format that applies, and that's what you need to apply in the body of your literature review. Follow the format, use in-text or parenthetical citations where called for. Plug in the information called for in the places called for by that outline, and to use an expression which I recently discovered apparently comes from the Brits, Bob's your uncle. Just a few more observations. A key aspect of literature reviews is that you're bringing items of the literature together to present an overall image of the current learning and trends in a particular area. If you instead devote one paragraph each to each study without referring to the other studies with comparative language, that's just basically a annotated bibliography in narrative form. That's not what I'm looking for. If you end up with a conclusion on a question, that is a research paper. This assignment is not asking you to do a research paper. Research papers are all about coming to conclusions or discovering new information. I'm going to ignore that phone call, but that isn't what is called for in this assignment. Instead, you are meant to survey literature, identifying major trends, group works together on the basis of common themes, evaluate the credibility of each work, compare the different works to each other, and then identify gaps or inconsistencies in the literature. See, literature reviews are more common in the sciences than in the humanities, but their purpose is the same regardless: identifying issues or questions which have not yet been addressed. You see, at the graduate level, what scholars in either the humanities or the sciences are looking to do is to identify a new question that hasn't been addressed before. This is known as what's called original research, and literature reviews are used as tools to find such questions, gaps, or inconsistencies that then would lend themselves to writing a fully realized scholarly research paper. So, in that light, and with that said, I know that merely setting out what shouldn't be done is often not as helpful as providing an example of what should be done. and thus I think it was a quarter or two ago I had a student submit a really good literature review, and I was quite impressed, and I got their permission to use that as an example. So if you look at the announcement, there's a link to a literature review, and if you're trying to get a good idea of what I'm looking for, that's something to look at. That's finally then, feel free to email me if you have any further questions, but we are entering the last week of this class, and we're hitting one of the most demanding assignments, but if you've been keeping up with the work, you should have by now the necessary tools needed to complete this assignment and do well. And if you feel lost and need some direction or want me to clarify or elaborate on anything, shoot me an email and I will respond as quickly as I can. That's it. Ciao for now.